Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Rules as Written. I am one of your hosts, Matt Robertson, also known as Grape Ape.
And I'm Stefan Strott, also known as DM Bad Wrong Fun on whatever social medias survive.
Now, Stefan, we have with us, Julian Burnick was supposed to be a guest this evening. But after a recent episode of Spellburn, and Elena, if you could post that link in Spellburn, Julian made an offending comment about the Brewers and the Twins, and I cut him from the episode. I said, Julian, you're out. You're off the show. I kicked him out. I said, you are not welcome. You need to sit in the corner, and you can come in another couple weeks or 4 weeks. And so at 47 minutes, everyone can see the offending comment that he made about the Packers. And so I booted him from the episode, Stefan.
Yeah, he's got to learn his place.
He does. And we have a much better guest, in my opinion. Daniel Bishop, thank you for coming back.
You're welcome. You are harsh but fair.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. If these are the first time someone is meeting you, what can they gather from who you are?
My name is Daniel J. Bishop, sometimes RavenCrowKing. I have written a few things for DCC and promote the game whenever possible. If you have not seen my blog, you should definitely do so. RavenCrowKing's Nest, you can find it using Google.
Yeah, it's also in the chat.
We have that link as well. Yeah. And so I heard also there was a Minnesota Twins game today. And so in support, I am wearing my Milwaukee Brewers t-shirt because the Brewers are a better team anyway, let's face it. But Daniel, we are so excited to have you, and we're going to get right into it. So I'm going to hit you with our first question. Elena, if you could bring up question 1. Daniel, in previous episodes, we've talked about the Reaver, we've talked about the Healer, we've talked about the Sentinel, we've talked about the Shaman, and we've talked about the Rover and MCC. So we're about to dive into the mutants and Plantians and Manimals. And our first question for these three is, how are these mutation checks made? We've kind of discussed it. They each get mutations, these three classes. But how do you go about making one of those checks?
Well, it's very similar to a spell check in DCC. You are going to roll a d20. You're going to add your bonus, which is based on your level. And you might Glowburn or you might spend luck. And I know we're going to talk about Glowburn later too, so I will hold that for a minute. Some of yours are going to be active and some are going to be passive. If it is a passive mutation, you roll when you get it. You can still spend luck, you can still spend, you can still Glowburn. If it is active, you roll when you use it. So if I have claws like Wolverine, I only find out what they are once. Or ones initially, you can reroll every time you gain a level. You do not have to.
That is exactly it. Almost word for word. Elena, if you could bring up handout 1A, on page 42 of the MCC RPG, Stefan, it says that active mutations, those at-will use powers, you have to kind of use your will to make them happen. And they are re-rolled each time that you actively use that mutation. Passive mutations have that permanent, lasting effect upon the character, and they're only rolled upon acquiring it first time, like Daniel said, and then can be rolled anew at each level progression.
But you do not have to. You get a good roll, you don't have to.
And so, Daniel, what about the option, like, if you have like a poor roll, like a 17, and you want to bump it up into the 20 category, but you roll really low? Would you let your players keep their existing one, or do they have to take the new roll that's worse?
They take the new roll. If you're going to play the game, you get what you get. Like, okay, every game in the DCC sphere has some form of gamble for the characters in it. And that is one of the gambles that you take as a mutant. If you want to reroll that passive mutation and you get something worse, you absolutely can get something worse. It's actually in the book. Your mutation can devolve.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, devolving is spotted throughout the rule book there. You can do it in many, many ways. And mutation check is yet another one of them. So I was going to ask the same question because I've had many people ask me that as well.
All right. Well, for handout 1B, Elaine, if you could bring that up. As Daniel said, the base mutation check. The player rolls the appropriate action die determined by their genotype and class level and adds the genotype class level to that die. So if they're level 3, they're going to add a level 3. If they're level 7, they would add a level 7. And then on handout 1C, as we've mentioned, any single mutation check roll can be increased by either burning luck after the fact. You can burn it before or after, but why would you burn it before? Or employing Glowburn. Glowburn must be announced before mutation check is rolled. Stefan, is that consistent with what you operate at the table?
Oh, yes. And I think the other kind of really important thing to mention is you're just adding your level. You're not adding your intelligence modifier, your personality modifier. So it's don't compare it. Don't just think it's exactly like a spell check because you're getting less of a bonus actually. But
It is similar, but not the same.
Yeah, because we're not trying to replicate DCC. We're trying to do something new.
All right. And so it is indeed a new role. Now, I've got an example here for us of monster mutation that is in the book. And Lena, if you could bring up handout 1D for us, and Tim Satley will love this one because it is about the T-bar. I'm not even sure if am I saying that right, Daniel? T-bar or Tibar, the rabbit kind of manimals.
I think Tibar.
Yeah, I've always heard Tibar.
Because it's rabbit backwards.
On page 198 in the MCC RPG second printing, they have their own mutation table, which I thought was outstanding. How are they rolling this? Because we don't have a level for a Tibar.
We have hit die.
Well, it's SP in the stat block there, SP mutation check +2, and as Daniel said, they are a 2 HD monster.
There you go. Right. So if you're ever in doubt and you get a tricky mutation that you're not sure of, level, hit dice, works for monsters the same as it works for players. And Daniel, would you let this energy sap, the Tibar has an energy sap, a mutation, would there be any restriction from the players ever getting this mutation that you would say, no, absolutely not. You can't have a monster mutation.
I would do the same thing I would do with DCC and say, if you really wanted it, then you need to find a way to get it. It's not something normally that would happen, but perhaps there is some super science way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Gotta genetically fuse with the rabbit, or find that radioactive pool where the rabbits all sacrifice each other to whatever the heck they're sacrificing each other to these days.
And perhaps the power is all in the rabbit ears. And if you get one of those little kind of visors that you put on with the rabbit ears,
little artifact to emulate the mutation.
You absolutely could do that. Like I don't think that the idea was to restrict. I think the idea was to encourage the judge when creating new monsters to really go for it.
I agree.
Absolutely, I feel that too.
So, Stefan, I'll let you answer first. To reiterate our question, final answers: how are mutation checks made?
D20 plus your level. So third level characters, D20 +3. You can glow burn your physical stats before if you want. You can luck burn before or after, but if you're gonna do it after. And if it's an active mutation, you get what you get in that moment. And if it's a passive mutation, you get what you get for until you decide to perhaps re-roll it one day upon leveling up again.
That is my final answer as well. D20 plus level. Low burn before, luck after. And Daniel, what is your final answer?
Exactly the same, but with the note that if you get your passive mutation, it is possible that you don't get anything.
That's very true. Yeah, it might be some cosmetic thing.
Yeah, you have that that thing in your genome now, but it doesn't necessarily express. It could be, I could have armor plating, but I rolled really badly.
Mm-hmm.
And so in cases like that, you would definitely want to re-roll when you level up.
Yes.
Well,
Which
Stefan,
I think
that
can be a
leads
good
us.
way to kind of, if you're afraid of, maybe that might be the reason for a player holding back from doing all the glow burn during an adventure, or they do a little bit too much glow burn and then they don't have enough, ready for when they're leveling up. So I don't know. You in campaign play, you'll find that there's like a cool balance there that occurs of when they're glow burning and versus when they're trying to boost one of those passive mutations again.
Because
It's kind of
Glowburn
like that.
is a little
Go ahead,
bit
Daniel.
nastier.
Mm-hmm.
Glowburn is a little bit nastier than Spellburn.
It's kind of like that waiting game when you level up in DCC. Do you use the spell slot for something that you have readily available, or do you wait for an awesome spell that you're hoping to get? And so that's kind of like the risk. Do you fill that slot and you got to wait till the next level? Do you re-roll the mutation now, or do you keep what you have, so you're safe? So yeah, obviously less risk at lower level because you'll level up sooner.
Yes.
Stefan, what's
Definitely.
our next question? Daniel.
Daniel hinted at it earlier. It is, what is Glowburn?
All right, Daniel, what is Glowburn?
So if you're a mutant or a plantiant or a manimal, you can consume small amounts of radioactive matter that you collect throughout your career for this purpose to boost temporarily your mutation. You do this before the roll, and if you go below 3, you can do nothing, which is a really nice rule that I actually had to look in to see if it was in DCC for Spellburn, but I could not find it. So that's why I said it was a little bit nastier. I think it will be in Spellburn from now on, but but then you recover
And
1 ability point per day that you do not Glowburn. That's just one of the ways that in campaign play it's better than in one shot, because there are some real consequences to using everything you've got.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the idea behind it is we talked to Jim a little bit. And we've got his answers on some of the subjects for Glowburn. And because the shaman can also glow burn when they
Yes.
cast a wetware spell. And so we were kind of trying to connect those two to the mutations. And so I think the idea is that you're consuming, as a mutant, animal, or plantian, you're consuming these radioactive bits to have your previous mutations that you have kind of explode a little bit with that radiation and flourish just like the metagenesis. Is that what you think as well, Steph?
I think so. I mean, it also doesn't have to be eating small amounts of radioactive junk. James said that much. That was just kind of I think he list a kind of Appendix M inspiration source for that. I can't recall.
I think so.
I think he did, but well, I certainly can't remember what it is, at least. But yeah, it could be other things as well. But it's not going to be that carve your arm up with a dagger blood magic kind of thing that we get in DCC. If you're going to do something different than what's suggested there, you got to come up with something that's makes sense in terms of the rule book, the setting.
Right. Eating radioactive substances is the flavor text.
Mm-hmm.
Elena, if you could bring up handout 2A for us. On page 43, it talks about Glowburn. It says, beginning at first level, a character may elect to use Glowburn to increase the mutation check roll. Glowburn must be announced in advance. To use Glowburn, the character burns off points of physical abilities, strength, agility, or stamina, and adds 1 point to the mutation check for every point burned off of their abilities. And then handout 2B, same page, it says, in play, this represents the mutant voluntarily ingesting any mildly radioactive material that they have gathered up on his or her journeys for just this purpose, causing the mutant great pain and sickness as a side effect, also briefly amplifying the effects of one mutation. How do you guys use that thematically in your games? Do you touch on it at all, or do you just say when a character says "I Glowburn," it's just okay? Is there any kind of somatic sequence there?
I personally don't worry about it too much because I have players who are already reluctant to burn things. I finally, like in DCC Spellburn and MCC Glowburn, I finally gotten people to be willing to do this because, like I said, there's a gamble involved. You are making yourself weaker, and you don't always know that that's the biggest fight you're going to be in.
Yep.
You find you come upon the same thing?
I recently did, it was not in an MCC game, but yeah, I was in a game and I was like, wow, these guys are so reluctant to spell burn. I'm as a player, I'm not, and I play with people who aren't, but it's not always like that. So yeah, sometimes you have to beat them a little bit. I think another kind of flavor bit I've done before, which makes I think slightly more sense for shamans, is I've had someone be like, they've said they're picking up just broken microchips and they're like shoving it like underneath their skin to try to turn themselves into an antenna and increase their connection with their patron. So I think, it's been a while, but I've had a player say that they're doing that as a shaman. So maybe an option for folks.
The patron AIs also have Glowburn tables, which give you an idea of what that Glowburn represents or how the patron responds to it, which I do use.
Yeah, I think those are more useful in MCC because I think in general, like it's easier to go, well, I know what fantasy is like than to say I know what this post-apocalypse is like. So I think they're more useful over here.
I do like both. I think they give you a real flavor for what that entity is, whether it's a computer or a demon. You know that is very different from the other thing.
Definitely
We've got
true.
some examples. Elena, if you could bring up handout 2A and 2E, I'm sorry. On page 209, it talks about one of the patron AIs, Achroma. As proof of loyalty, uses an ancient orbiting military satellite to beam the shaman directly into the chaotic maelstrom of the planet's upper ionosphere, which causes massive ability score loss from the hard radiation and sub-zero vacuum of low orbit, expressed as the stamina, strength, and agility loss. And then the burnt, frozen, and nearly asphyxiated shaman is beamed immediately back to their original location. I mean, if that isn't awesome when that happens to your shaman, that's one of the Glowburn categories for a chroma. Just open to the back into space.
That's something to behold. Oh no, Matt, we lost you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm getting excited over here, clicking all kinds of buttons. And Elena, if you could also bring up handout 2F, I posted another awesome one. Hexacoda on page 228 transmits nanoprobes into the bloodstream of the shaman to seek out and destroy any signs of outside agency by the use of miniaturized lasers. Laser fire coursing through the shaman's body causes glowburn damage, but grants an additional +1 to all fort saves versus disease for the next 24 hours. So Daniel, this is the first case I've ever, I think, recall of Glowburn or Spellburn ever having a beneficial effect as a side effect. You know of any others?
There are ones that give you opportunities. I know that I've included some in the patrons I did for angels, demons, and beings between. And for example, the King of Elfland gives you the opportunity to tell a joke that he likes that gets used in Spellburn for free. So yeah, there are some possibilities of gambling and winning in the Spellburn department or a Glowburn department.
I love that uniqueness. Stefan, have you ever? This is the first time I ever noticed kind of like an extra side effect on the Glowburn or Spellburn. Have you ever seen any other ones that you can recall?
No, I can sure think of a lot in Patron Taint, a whole lot of side effects, but not in Glowburn.
I should have
Yeah.
pulled some of those out so I had them available. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Well, the other handout I had was for Me 10. So, Lane, if you could bring up handout 2G, this is another Glowburn result on page 242. These are really awesome in the book. M10 requires the shaman to partake of his favorite food, a spicy dish usually called curry, barely recognizable as even being biological, but achievable with local jungle plants and spices. This seemingly irradiated sludge burns and blisters the shaman's mouth and esophagus and digestive tract. And that is the ability point loss by eating, having like a little side cache of curry that you just slurp down.
Yep. Cook eats these jalapenos.
That's right. In the southern parts of the jungle of Terra AD, of course, not in the northern parts. But we do have a couple other points I wanted to touch on about Glowburn. Just like Daniel said on page 43, Glowburn abilities will heal back at a rate of 1 point a day that the mutant does not Glowburn. Additionally, any Glowburn that's reduced below a value of 3 requires complete bed rest and inactivity until that ability heals back to a value of 3 or above. Stefan, have you ever incorporated that in your MCC games?
Not in my MCC. I mean, I think I've been like, you don't need. I've not forced complete bed rest. I have sometimes been like, yeah, you've messed yourself up pretty badly, and you can't walk out of here. Mongo over there is shoving you in his backpack, and he's carrying you out of the dungeon or the facility of the ancients. But because you're not getting bed rest here, that's usually what it is, and then everyone's
Right.
trying to take it easy once they get back to the village anyway.
Yeah, but that's not
I've
you doing anything. That's Mongo.
Yeah.
I've been kind of lackadaisical in following that rule. Being a rules of written host, I should be following that rule, but I often ignore it because you're kind of faced with what's fun and what's not, and everybody loves to burn down to 1. Everybody loves to push the limit as far as they can. Daniel, how do you find that rule coming into play? You just said you got your players just to begin using Spellburn and Glowburn. Have any of them pushed the limits that far?
No. I've seen Spellburn push that far in conventions, but I have like my regular players are very started off very cautiously. As I really asked them, "Would you like to Spellburn?" They thought, "Well, we know him very well, so if he's that happy about it, it can't be good."
It's a trap.
Exactly.
I like the fact that they're getting to use it now. So burning down to 3 has got to be around the corner. They just need those life or death circumstances where they have to burn it.
So I just in my regular game ended up with a level 6, like between levels 4 and 6 at the very end, depending on who made it and then who made it, where they semi-retired those characters because they had gotten they had reached a conclusion that made sense from the beginning to the end. And these games are really good at allowing you to reach those conclusions without planning them. Like, oh wow, we told a complete story. That was lucky.
Yeah. Yep. I mean,
awesome.
A lot of the time, the characters are really making the narrative. You're just making the situation, is what it is. So they'll find a natural end to their own narrative.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good game.
Okay, so our last handout is handout 2D, Elena. If you could bring that up. On page 43, normally only mutants, manimals, and plantians are able to use the Glowburn mechanic. The one exception to this rule is that the shaman class for pure strain humans can also use. So no rovers, no sentinels, no healers, but the shamans when they cast wetware, they can't Glowburn for any other things like skill checks or anything like that. And conversely, Glowburn can't be used by manimals, plantians, and manimals for anything other than mutation checks. Well, that'll get us to our final answers. Stefan, I'll go first. You went first last time. What is Glowburn? Glowburn is the equivalent of Spellburn in DCC, where you sacrifice your physical characteristics, being strength, agility, or stamina, in some way to give you a 1-for-1 point benefit to a upcoming roll. It has to be used beforehand. Stefan, what's your final answer?
Oh, just as you said, except with the addition that you're only allowed to go down to 3. You can't go down to 1, which you certainly can in DCC.
Thank you.
All right.
Excellent
Daniel?
point.
I would say 2 additional things. One, you can go down to 1. It just costs you more. And 2, make sure that you use the Patron AI Glowburn charts, because they are not just eating little bits of radioactive stuff. It's very specific, and they're good.
Okay. And so now we get into the meat of being the mutant class. And so this is one that I really want to touch on because I think there's definitely room for expansion and more development by judges who use this. So the question 3, if you could bring that up, Elena, is does the mutant horror ability have relevance beyond initiative? So I guess probably, Daniel, can you tell us what the mutant horror ability is, first of all?
The mutant horror ability is that your mutant is so different looking from everything around them that people pause when they face you, giving you an advantage to go first in combat.
So they see the guy with like a lobster hat, Hulk claw, and spiked hair and 7 eyeballs, and they're like, "Whoa! Like, what is wrong
Or
with
even
you?"
just the Toxic Avenger, yeah.
Yeah. Or for some of us, just like high school.
So Elaine, if you could bring up handout 3A so we can get that definition on the screen for our viewers. Page 34, just like Daniel said, the mutant horror being among the most bizarre appearing of mutated creatures. Mutants can strike fear into their opponents or pause, gaining an initiative bonus in combat. And then handout 3B is that table that you refer to. It's at the very right, starts out at a 1d3, then goes on from there. So to get back to our question, Stefan, is there any relevance or use for it beyond that initial initiative burst?
I think so, definitely. It's going to be more in the roleplay aspect, not, I think, anything that's mechanically driven. But yeah, definitely roleplay. When you come to a new village, if you find a village that has, somehow been more protected and it's, all plantients or all, pure strain humans, for whatever reason, they're not used to hanging out with a bunch of mutants. Hey, maybe you want to use your mutant horror die and subtract that from personality checks if you want to get mechanical with it. But primarily from a roleplay perspective, it's going to still play a part in your campaign.
Now, I haven't seen the Toxic Avenger for probably about 30 plus years. Daniel, I don't know if you've seen it sooner than that, but do you recall anything from the movie that we could be implemented from that horror shock aspect of seeing a mutant for the first time?
No, sorry.
But yeah, I saw it about 10 years ago, but it's been a while, and I was not in the most coherent of mindsets, so I don't remember a whole lot, at least in that detail level.
I am going to guess the answer is yes, but it is a guess.
So there is some other precedence for it in the MCC RPG, and I had to scour through the text to try to find this. Elaine, if you could bring up handout 3C for us. This is in the mutation meditative state. On page 116, it says 16 through 19, mutant is able to focus their mutant horror ability, their horrifying image, to the point where it draws all focus to themselves, allowing allies within 10 feet to gain the mutant's horror bonus to initiative. Now, I can almost see this as being like a distracting technique because in DCC, I often have warriors that are trying to protect other members of the party. And they're like, I want to do a deed where I get this guy's attention and, he focuses his attacks on me so I can defend the rest of the party and they can do whatever. Daniel, do you see any kind of use that we might be able to implement? And that might not necessarily be rules as written, but going off that ability of meditative state where he becomes the focus of attacks to take those on himself to give others a chance to do something else.
I don't see why you couldn't. I'm pretty. Everyone knows I'm extremely kind as a judge, and if you have a good reason that something should happen, I'll at least give a chance that it will. Moreover, the more that you played up the fact that your mutant has a non-working head next coming out of his neck or whatever, the more you played up the actual aspects of the mutant, the more I'm willing to say, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
So
I hadn't
Stefan,
thought about that before,
almost,
but I think that's a great idea, Matt.
I'm almost kind of envisioning it like Beetlejuice, where they're regular ghosts. It's shocking enough to see a ghost, but then they spiel their scary faces back, and so you can. I mean, could you even I'm kind of going off Glowburn here. If you eat a piece of radioactive to get that bloom, could your mutations just kind of expand and explode and grow to even more horrific
like a
images?
mutational acne flare up? Yeah.
Then we could put a price. You could put a price with it of 1 point of Glowburn.
Yes. I was going to say, just be careful how you change the rules if there is no negative consequence. Because if you say, yes, you can do this automatically every time, then you have to live with the consequence that you can do this automatically every time.
As I'm experiencing now in the Reaver Express, by giving Cirrus a chill touch mutation, he got corruption, and so his touch automatically freezes things. So now he's going around touching things and freezing things all over the place. And I was like, I knew I should have never given that to you. But let's get our final answers for this one, Stefan. Mm-hmm. Does the mutant horror ability have relevance beyond initiative? It does in one specific mutation, but otherwise it's just rules as written for initiative. But I think it's there for you as a judge to expand on if you would like to. What's your final answer?
I feel much the same way. Yeah, rules as written, it's just initiative, but have it play into the role play because I mean when we're actually role playing, none of that's quite rules as written. We're all making stuff up. That's just how the game is. So include it there as well.
All right, and Daniel?
There is nothing in that book that you can't add to. And same with mutant horror. Rules is written. It is to give you the bonus to initiative like warriors have in warriors have in DCC. But add whatever you want. Just make sure that there's some gamble or some cost.
Yeah. Yeah, it's written on dead trees, not stone. So do what you need to.
Even if it was written in stone.
In the event that your, mutant does get a great jump from rolling 1d3 plus 2, they get a +5 to initiative. Do you guys expand on that when you're storytelling, when they're taking their action, or you think that's something the player should expand on? Just give kind of flavor. As
belongs to the player.
Yeah, I agree. That belongs to the player. I'll own the reactions of all the other characters, but the interpretation of it is not mine to have as the judge.
All right, Stefan, what is our final question for Daniel?
Oh, the final question. It is there a limit to how many or how few mutations that a mutant can have?
Yes. Well, that was easy.
What do you...
all right. Show's over, folks.
Okay, there is no limit to how many you can have. There is a limit to how few you can have. Because if you got 0, you're not a mutant anymore. You are a pure string human.
Ah, all right.
And we talked about that a little with Bruce last episode, but very briefly. Daniel, have you ever had that happen, first of all?
No. And before this show, I was giving a lot of thought to what you could do. Like, let's say you're 5th level, and suddenly you're a pure string human. What does that mean for that character? Is he a 5th level rover, or is he 1st level?
And that's my question. Yeah, what would you do at that point? You lose all your mutations. You still kind of have all your abilities. But where does that character go from there?
I would say level 1, but his past levels count to a maximum of 10 levels. So the rover who was once a mutant is never going to be as good as the rover who started out as a pure string human, but he will have lots of hit points.
And so
okay.
would you let them start rolling those hit points immediately and when they switch over?
I would say keep your old hit points, but as you go forward, now you get your new class hit points.
Okay.
Oh, all right. So let's say I lose all my mutations. I say I'm going to become a healer. Do I get the healer HD for 1st level right then, or you just at the point where you lose
are
your
a 1st
mutations?
level healer without gaining any of those extra bits. You don't gain them until you get 2nd level.
Okay,
You gain the abilities of a 1st level healer, but you already have the hit points for the level you are. I'm not going to give you more for having lost all your mutations.
You did say you were a nice judge. I thought I'd try and sneak it in.
I'm a really nice judge. That's lenient. I could have made you 1st level with re-rolling your hit points from scratch.
I'll say this has happened to me when I ran Warlords Fate Toss as a convention game once, so just a one shot. Happened to some PCs there, and I was just like, well, you're 0 level now. You just roll a d4. That's what you got. So I was mean.
PCs, you had multiple.
There's 2 of them. One got to be a pure strain human. The other got to be like a houseplant. So they were just
the houseplant is different. You don't even get to roll a d4.
Yeah, they were just being carried around, and at the end it was like, well, maybe we could find a way to bring them back.
Well, let's get into what's in the rule books here. Let's dive into what's in the rules, written down, raw. Elaine, if you could bring up handout 4A for us. We're talking about how many mutations they have. So let's start at the beginning. Age 19, 0 level mutants, manimals, and plantians begin with only cosmetic mutations. So before they get their regular class mutations, genotype mutations, they already start with mutations that are cosmetic, which may not be related to what they get later on. So you're already getting an initial. Go ahead.
But if you become a pure strain human, you've lost those 2.
So that's a good question because that's not really addressed in the rules. Because they're not mutations that you actively or passively incorporate into your character, when are those lost? Are those included when you roll something in effect? When you roll a failure on a save and it says lose a mutation, do you count those cosmetics in with your regular?
I do not. But if your genome loses that plasticity, that makes you mutant and becomes locked as a pure string, you're locked at base type.
Well, if you're a mutant with cosmetic wings at 0 level, when do you lose those wings? Is there another point where it can be lost?
If you never lose your that you're a mutant, I would say that is always going to be with you.
I'd agree on that. Yeah, if you go down to 0 level and you're still whatever the demarcation line is there, if you go down to 0 level but you're still a mutant somehow, then you're gonna keep your cosmetic stuff, but not anything that has a power. But I think the actual issue is that if you lose all of your you're not losing levels, you're losing mutations. So just to course correct my mind here, if you lose all of your mutations, yeah, I'd kick you down to, I guess, level 1, and you're a pure strength human now. I probably wouldn't. The reason I did the You're a 0 level was because it was like a convention game, and I didn't want to take the time there to interrupt, the flow of the game, to get someone to level up, and choose a class, and do all that right then. That was going to be too much. But in an ongoing game, yeah, I'd say pick whatever you're going to do at level 1.
Well, and so if you lose all your mutations, but you get to keep your wings, then you're not a pure strain human.
No, I'd say you do not get to keep your wings. That is a mutation, even if it's just cosmetic.
All right, so that's
let's
Daniel.
put it this way.
Daniel, are you saying that you keep the cosmetic? Do you keep the cosmetic mutation?
Not if you're a pure strain. The minute you go into pure strain human, you lose that plasticity.
All right, so if you lose them, at what point in the fortitude save lose a mutation is that included? If we don't include that in the
Never.
Let's say if you never lose it, then you have the
wings.
If
you lose your last mutation,
they go with
that you gained, they go with. When you lock into a pure strain human, they go. But, and if Harley Stroh or Mike Curtis or Brandon LaSalle is listening, here's the adventure for you to write, or Jim Walther, I suppose. What if there was a super science thing that did not remove your mutation, but merely suppressed it? So that you still kept your 0 level abilities. Your manimal doesn't become 4-legged. Still is basically humanoid in shape. The plant can still move. Right? Just like the plant becomes a regular plant when they lose their mutations, they have lost the cosmetic mutations that made them a mobile plant. Your manimal has lost the cosmetic mutations that made them a humanoid and able to think like a humanoid.
I would say I've read I've thought about something like that. If anyone wants to do that, go ahead and write it. I'd suggest read The Devil's Asteroid by Manly Wade Wellman.
Oh, that's a good one.
All right, Elaine, if you could bring up handout 4B for us. These are their genotype mutations that I have listed kindly for us. Page 34 for mutants. Upon achieving first level, a mutant gains random 1d3 mutations and 1d2 mental mutations. Physical, 1d3 physical. So they can, at max, have up to 5. Page 36, manimals. A manimal gains 1d2 random physical and 1 random mutation. So they can have a max up to 3. And then Plantians on page 38. Plantian gains 1d3 random physical mutations. So they can have up to 3 too.
But what if
Daniel, why do you...
mutation?
Say it again?
But what if you encounter some radioactive source and you gain additional mutations?
Right. So this is what they start out with. Definitely not the maximum of what they can have. But why do you think the Plantians can't get mental mutation? They only get the physical mutation.
They don't have brains. They're plant-based. They don't have meat brains.
Meat brains is a good way to put it. They think it differently.
All right. I'll buy that.
I would
Elaine,
say
if you could bring up...
in the lit, like the post-apocalyptic lit, I can't think of I can think of some telepathic plants.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly in Doctor Who, and I know that Jim Wampler is a big Doctor Who fan.
Maybe you could. That's another little adventure you could write. The Plantians who have telepathic powers, but it's only with each other, or maybe it's got to be by touch, and you get a pod people situation happening.
But you could gain a mental mutation as a Plantian, I believe, by being exposed to radiation too.
I don't think so, because you would still have to roll on the with the Radburn table to determine what kind of thing that you get.
I looked at that one to see.
So, yeah, we didn't make you do homework on that one. That's fine. But I think that'd have to be a hard quest for it, and we're doing a little house ruling.
Oh, the initial that they can start out with is their cosmetic mutation, 5, 3, and 3, respectively.
Yep,
They gain
you're
first
correct.
level. Now they can, of course, gain more than this from exposure to radiation, but they cannot, like Daniel said at the beginning, go below 0. Lena, if you could pop up handout 4B. We're not sure where we lost you guys, but 4B tells you where you can get your first max mutations. You got cosmetic at 0 level. You got a maximum of 5, 3, and 3, respectively, on first level. You can gain more than that, but bring up handout 4C after that. Once you get down to 0 and lose them all, then you're reduced to a pure strain human, an animal, or a regular plant. Elena, if you could bring up handout 4D, this is where we were headed to next. If a mutated character makes the required saving throw by rolling a natural 20 on a fortitude save that has to deal with radiation, then they gain 1 new random mutation or defect. Now, that's an important thing right there. You could be worse than you were. You could gain a defect. And so I think that's a result of like 1 to 3 on the Radburn chart. Is that right, Stefan?
It depends what you are. It's depending on what you are, it's a 1 or a 1 or 2.
Now, Daniel, you said burn luck. Would you allow luck to be burned on a 1?
No.
Okay.
Yep.
You knew where I was going.
Yeah.
When Jim was on, he said much the same thing, I believe. He said he would allow a burning. Yeah, I don't need to repeat it. He said the same thing.
Well, he is well known as an intelligent enhancement individual.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Let's jump into devolution. If we go to handout 4E, this is a defect, I believe, on page 68. So I put up some results up here. 20 through 23, mutant is temporarily removed 3 random mutations from the target creature for 1d3 rounds. So this isn't a defect, this is an ability. So they can do this to other people, other mutants, other manimals, other plantians. They can take away those abilities. May optionally permanently remove 1 mutation defect with no other effect. The 24 to 27 result, temporarily remove all mutations for 24 hours. 28 to 29, mutant target reduced to a small prehistoric version of its genotype, and then it gets worse from there. It turns them into a piece of sludge. And so, for NPCs and monsters, Daniel, if a mutant is using this ability, or, if one of our classes is using this ability, and they devolve something that far, is there an opportunity to come back?
If it says that there is, there is. If you lost it permanently, I'm sorry, it is permanent.
So what if Stefan makes me angry, and I cast it on Stefan, and his manimal is reduced to a cow for 24 hours? Does he come back at the level 3 manimal that he was before?
24 hours? Yes, he does. And he probably is looking for payback.
Don't be a stampede. I'm getting all my bovine buddies.
So there is a little case of devolution, so you can see how it affects when characters use that ability. Now, the defect I was talking about is on page 97. Lane, if you could bring up handout 4F. This is the defect mutation loss. So you're sitting here rolling up your mutations. You roll like 100, I think it is, 99 or 100, and you're like, you got to roll on the defect chart. You're like, oh. Some of these results on page 97, the mutant loses all current mutations and has to roll 1 random physical mutation and 1 random mental mutation. There is where plantians can get mental mutation.
There you go.
All right.
So, what do we think about that?
I've got no problem whatsoever.
I hadn't realized that one. Yeah. But that's a cool way.
The game is not designed to really limit you. It's designed to be playable and fun. Or it's designed to give you a limiting framework in a way so that you have to work to get past limits if you're a player.
So plantians can get mental mutations. It just has to be under extraordinary circumstances. That might be a defect, or that might be something else in the world. I'm sure there's just if we wanted to scour through the modules, all the different adventures. I mean, heck, if we looked at the data orb of the Meta Mind, I forget the
Metakind.
exact title.
Yeah.
Metakind. I bet if we looked at that, there's probably a heck of a lot of ways in there to get some mental mutations, no matter who you are. So it's just not going to normally happen. But sure, all right. I've learned something new today. 2 things now, even.
So that's we love learning stuff new, and it happens for all of us all the time, no matter how long we've been playing. It happens to everyone. So let's look at this result of 2 to 4. You get exposed to radiation. You make a fort save. You roll a 1. You got to lose a mutation, and you end up rolling a defect on the Radburn chart. That makes you lose all your mutations. Let's say I was a mutant with 5, and then I only have to roll 1 new random physical mutation. That is a tough, tough loss. And then on top of that, if you lose that one, you're pure strain human.
Yep.
Is that too tough, Daniel?
No. No, that is not too tough.
I'll plug Matt. This happened at your game at LongCon last year. It happened to someone who was his very first MCC, DCC, any kind of CCC game. And that happened to him on his very first mutation roll. He had 1 mutation for the rest of the adventure, and he still had a really good time. We were running the booth. He bought the MCC core rulebook from us the next day. So I would say to some people, yes, it's too tough. But to others, they're still going to have a whole lot of fun because it's a fun game with some stellar adventures.
Did I make him play with that 1 mutation the whole time?
You did.
If you lose all of your hit points, you're dead. I mean, losing your mutations, so what?
Yeah. Elena, if you could bring up handout 4G for us. This on page 97 is a mega mutation. So these are the big ones. This is called gene splice. And so this is when the mutant steals mutations from other people, other places. So on the question of when they can, how many mutations can they have? Is there a limit? No, you can keep getting mutations until you're completely 100 mutified. So you can steal mutations. The level of 34, I think, lets you pick one permanently. And then if we needed further proof, Elena, if you could bring up our last handout 4H. If we needed proof in the book that there's no level, number of mutations you can have, on page 145 with the Children of the Glow archaic alignment, status within this archaic alignment is based on the number of mutations carried by an individual, with the more numerous and more bizarre mutations granting higher rank. Well, the more you have, you're like a chief, right, Daniel?
That's correct.
Yeah, so I love diving into the archaic mutations. And so what we're going to get into next episode, archaic alignments, thank you. What we're going to get into the next episode is the hunters, or the people that integrate themselves in the societies and try to take out anyone with mutations. Being a Children of the Glow, go ahead.
I was just going to say, interestingly enough, your gene splicing mutation allows you to get that Tyrvar's mutation, which answers your earlier question.
Oh, see, even this DCC and MCC, they just wrap around it. Even the show, when I don't even plan it, just comes full
use them
circle.
together.
That's the best way.
So we're going to talk more about archaic alignments next episode. I'm going to see if Julian's available. I'm not sure if I've forgiven him completely yet. We'll see. He might be making an appearance here soon if he apologizes profusely.
All right.
What is our final?
Maybe you'll have to give away some Nowhere City Night stuff on the Reaver Express, something like that to get you, in good graces.
I was thinking that I was going to have to sit here and wait for a emergency call again.
Oh,
Julian bailed.
Yeah, and you were scheduled for 2 weeks. Yeah.
I know. I'm just giving Julian a hard time because Julian.
No, it's all good. Well, hey, I guess we should
right.
wrap stuff up. I'll say, folks, go check out Daniel's blog. We posted it earlier. If you just Google RavenCrowKing,
Stefan,
you'll
you got to
find
give
it.
your final answer real quick. You got
Oh,
to give your
sure.
final answer.
My
Is
final
there a limit to
answer
how
on
many
this.
or how few mutations
Well,
a
no
mutant
limit
can
to
have?
how many, how few. Yes, if you get 0, you're not a mutant anymore. That's it, folks.
Same answer for me. No limit on how many you can have, and the more you have, the more status you would have in the Children of the Glow archaic alignment. I mean, you would be considered a god at 13 mutations or something like that. But how few? Once you're down to 0, things change. Daniel, what's your final thoughts on that question?
I fully agree, and I'll even say you might actually be a god if they're good mutations.
Maybe.
Like the
That
sheer
singularity.
power you could accumulate is amazingly high. Your odds are not really good, but that's what we play to find out what happens.
See.
Now, Daniel, I want to thank you very much for being a guest, especially on short notice when I had to boot Julian to the side. Is there anything you can share with us? Any secrets that you're working on? Like, I think pretty sure last time you gave us a juicy bit of information.
The biggest thing I'm working on right now, I cannot give you any information about. I'm sorry, I've signed an NDA.
Okay. What about the second biggest thing?
I am working on something for Purple Duck, actually written and should come to Kickstarter, I think, in November. That will be the final version of the Invisible Man has risen from the grave.
All right.
And I'm also working on something for Planet X.
Oh, very cool.
Very
Working with Levi.
Yeah, Levi Combs. You guys teaming up.
That is great.
Look forward to that. Daniel, anything else you want to share with us?
Man, I want to say something pithy, but I got nothing really pithy to say.
Next time.
They say don't split the party unless the party splits on you and Spellburn. I say split the party, make the judge's job tough, and then make your job even tougher when the judge gets his revenge.
That's like a plug. Split the party games. Stephanie, you got anything before we close out?
I'll just say if Longview, Texas ain't too much of a drive, Veterans Day weekend is the long con. A lot of the scheduled DCC games are sold out, though there might be a couple unscheduled ones. Except for this Saturday night, I see Prince Charming Reanimator. Never heard of that before. Who could say anything? Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. So yeah, if you need another game to sign up for at LongCon, get that one on your schedule.
All right, stay tuned in 30 minutes for Harley and Mike. Daniel, thank you very much for coming on. Elena, thank you for being so awesome. Pleasure. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.